The purpose of this video is just to quickly define what a reinstatement quote is and what the best practices are when you are trying to reinstate your mortgage. If you are already a subscriber, welcome back. If not, make sure you subscribe and like the video. That's the way we can really disseminate this information to people who need it the most. So, okay, reinstatement quotes. If you are somebody who has fallen behind on your mortgage, at a certain point, you will be kind of moved into foreclosure. There are other videos on this page about what the difference between kind of being in default versus being in foreclosure means. But at a certain point, you will be in foreclosure. Washington is what's known as a non-judicial foreclosure state. What that means is most of the foreclosures that move forward in Washington involve a trustee. So at a certain point in the foreclosure process, your lender or servicer will hire a trustee company in the state of Washington that will be the party responsible for executing the foreclosure of your home. Judicial foreclosures, as a side note, do happen in Washington. They're more rare and infrequent. That's a little bit different of a topic, but for purposes of reinstatement quotes, what you need to understand is at a certain point in the foreclosure timeline, there are two parties involved. One is obviously your lender and your servicer. The other party is this foreclosure trustee. So I get a lot of questions from homeowners, which is like, hey, I fell behind, I'm in foreclosure, and then suddenly they get to a point where they want to just pay back everything they owe. That's called reinstating the mortgage. You're not paying off the entire loan, but you're paying back everything that you missed so you can essentially bring the loan current and then just resume moving forward, making regular mortgage payments. That process of paying what you owe, bringing yourself current, is called reinstating. In the state of Washington, you can fully reinstate your loan at any point up until 11 days before an actual foreclosure auction date. If you want to reinstate your loan within these 11 days, you should definitely have some assistance doing that. If you're in Washington, call me and we can talk about that. But if you're somebody who wants to reinstate your loan and you're in this foreclosure process where there is a trustee involved, it's very important that you pull a reinstatement quote directly from the trustee. So what happens is once you move into foreclosure, your regular monthly payments that you're missing begin to accrue, right? But other things accrue as well. The lender is allowed to charge you late fees at this point, and then at a certain point in the process, the trustee is allowed to add what I'm calling in this video foreclosure fees and costs. And so oftentimes, just adding up the payments that you missed does not mean that that is the full reinstatement amount. There's often some significant fees that get attached so that reinstating the loan is actually a larger number than what you think. And so I often help homeowners who get into trouble by doing the following, which is completely reasonable to do, right? But borrowers will call their bank and they'll say, hey, how much do I have to pay to reinstate the loan and bring it current? The bank representatives are a little bit uninformed. They don't always give you the best info, and they might just quote you a number and say, you have to pay this much. And then borrowers send this money to the bank, but that wasn't the actually correct number. That wasn't the number that accounted for late fees or foreclosure costs. And so sometimes borrowers believe that they've reinstated the loan when they actually have just paid a partial payment and have not paid the full amount. So what's important to understand is if you are at the point in time in the foreclosure process where you have a foreclosure attorney's office or a trustee assigned to your non-judicial foreclosure, you should be asking that office for a reinstatement quote. The other thing I want to emphasize is don't send any money until you see a reinstatement number in writing. You want to make sure that you get this number in writing for two reasons. One is then it's not able to be disputed. If you just get verbal numbers from your bank, you could run into a situation where the bank says later on, oh, that's not what I told you, or it's actually more. But if you have something in writing, then you have something that you can fully rely on as you try to reinstate your loan. So get it in writing so that you have that kind of contract in front of you that says this is what's owed. And the second reason why you want to get a reinstatement quote in writing is that the reinstatement quote will have wiring instructions or payment instructions. So oftentimes, if you're reinstating your loan farther along in the foreclosure process, money doesn't necessarily go immediately directly to the lender. Sometimes the trustees or those foreclosure attorneys' offices will have you actually send the money to them. They will kind of apply it and then they will give the money to the lender. And so you don't want to be in a position where you're kind of falsely relying on information provided to you by your lender when you should be provided information by the trustee so that you get the correct number and the correct instructions to make the payment. And then my last little comment is, if you are reinstating your loan and you've got a great reinstatement quote and you've got payment instructions and you follow through and you follow the payment instructions correctly, you're always going to want to make a follow-up call, a follow-up email, and make sure that the trustee who's handling that reinstatement knows that you made that payment, and you get some sort of confirmation from them that yes, we have the payment, and then you want the secondary confirmation that the foreclosure has been stopped. So the most important thing to understand about reinstatement quotes is, depending on where you're at in the foreclosure timeline, that reinstatement number doesn't always come from the lender, and even if the lender provides you a number, it might not be the most accurate number. So try to figure out if you have a trustee involved, and if you do, go to them and ask them for the reinstatement quote. And then I'll just make one last comment here, which is, you might want to have somebody take a look at the fees that are added when you get your reinstatement quote. Sometimes the fees added have mistakes, sometimes they are kind of written in a confusing manner, and so you do want to kind of audit any fees that have been added to make sure you're paying only what's owed. Good luck.